Getting ready for the 2018 Florida legislative session. Members of the local Northwest Florida legislative delegation are here, and they want to know what's on your mind. We are live and interactive on radio and on television. From the Phyllis and Mike Johnson studio, it's Legislative Review, Dialogue with the Delegation.
This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Weeks. In addition to our television broadcast on WSRE TV, we're also being heard on News Radio 1620 and on 92.3 FM. I've had the privilege of hosting Legislative Review for quite a few years now, and I've had the opportunity to get to know the lawmakers on somewhat of a personal level. That being said, I want to extend our condolences to the family of Senator Greg Evers. Senator Evers passed away in August of this year. He participated in this program many times over the years. Off camera, I always enjoyed chatting with him, mostly about his farm and how the various crops were faring. He will be missed. Governor Rick Scott is going into his final legislative session, proposing a state budget north of $87 billion, referring to it as the Securing Florida's Future budget. But it may not be as secure as he would hope. The governor will likely run into strong opposition, a good bit of it from his own party, particularly House Speaker Richard Corcoran, with speculation running rampant that both men have political aspirations beyond their current positions. The stage is set for an intriguing 2018 session. On this evening's program, we want to hear from you, the constituents of Northwest Florida. This is a forum for you to ask your legislators questions about issues that most concern or interest you. You can do so by email or phone. The email address is questions@wsre.org, or if you prefer, call us at 850-484-1223 or toll free at 1-800-239-WSRE. We're joined this evening by members of the Northwest Florida Legislative Delegation. Senator Doug Broxson serves District 1. He is Vice Chairman of the Committee for Military and Veterans Affairs, Space, and Domestic Security. Senator George Gaynor serves District 2. He is Chair of the Committee on Transportation, and he was unable to join us this evening. From the Florida House of Representatives, Representative Clay Ingram. He serves District 1 and is Chair of the Transportation and Tourism Appropriations Subcommittee. Representative Frank White is Vice Chair of the Health Innovation Subcommittee and serves District 2. Due to a travel conflict, he is unable to join us this evening. Jair Williamson serves District 3. Representative Williamson is Vice Chair of the Government Accountability Committee. Representative Mel Ponder serves District 4. He is Vice Chair of the Higher Education Appropriations Subcommittee. Gentlemen, welcome and thank you for joining us. Representative Williamson, I'm going to begin with you. I mentioned the late Senator Evers at the top of the program here, and as I understand it, you guys have something special planned for him.
Sure. And so, first of all, the district that I cover is pretty much the one that Representative Senator Evers served his whole life, and it's a great district. It's such an honor to follow in his footsteps. He is somebody who fought for the common person and who fought for panhandle values. Senator Broxson covers that district now, and in the footsteps that he had in front of us are ones that we look up the way that he served his people, because he was a man of the common person. He wanted to make sure everybody had a cell phone, everybody knew how to get a hold of him and tell him the issues that they had. So this year, what we're doing, Representative Drake and I had spoken about possibly doing a road designation for Senator Broxson. We reached out to, or for Senator Evers, right. We reached out to Senator Broxson's office, and we've been working with that. It's going on the third committee stop, hopefully the first week of session. It'll be in the big committee, Government Accountability, that I vice chair, and then it will go to the House floor after that, and we'll be renaming a portion of Highway 4. If you were at the crossroad there in Baker, mm-hmm. and you look to your west and you walk to the west, or you drove to the west, it would be that stretch of road about 14 miles right through Greg Evers' country. It passes his farm. It passes by where his parents live. So it's just the perfect stretch of land, that what I would call Greg Evers country, and we're going to honor him and all his hard work and honor his family by renaming that the Senator Greg Evers Memorial Highway.
Very nice, very nice. The last time I had a chance to visit with him, we were talking about the strawberry crop, and I can't remember what he told me about the weather situation, whether it was going to be good or bad for him, but at the time we had a very nice conversation. So again, as I said, he will be missed. Well, let me begin with you as we get down to business about the 2018 legislative session. I'll begin with you, Senator Broxson. What's at top of mind? What's most important as we head into 2018?
Well, I think Hurricane Irma did devastating damage, primarily with crops in South and Central Florida. We've already gotten word from both the Speaker and the President of the Senate that we're going to be sensitive to the needs of those folks. And keep in mind that although we have an $87 billion budget, most of that's already been precast in programs, transportation, education. And we have probably $2 to $4 billion that we have access to for different projects. So we're going to see, they helped us during the oil spill in 2010, and we're going to have to help them. And I think this delegation is committed to helping our brothers and sisters in Central and South Florida.
Representative Ingram, what about you? What's top of mind?
Yeah, I'll go, if you don't mind, Jeff. My two daughters are watching at home, Maddie and Lydia. Maddie lost her first tooth. I just want to let her know that the tooth fairy is going to be coming to see you tonight. So anyway, I appreciate you letting me throw that out there.
And you know inflation is...
Not cheap for the tooth fairy anymore. Jeff, Senator Broxson hit the nail on the head as far as what the overall picture is going to be like with regard to budget. Hurricane Irma, we think of it just being something that emergency management had to deal with, but you take any state agency, the Department of Corrections, Juvenile Justice, basically you name the agency, they probably had to move people around, they had to account for evacuations and all that sort of stuff throughout the state of Florida. So their budgets were absolutely depleted. So that really did a number on their existing budgets to have to be replenished, and then they still have to do their mission that they're tasked with. So that hurts. Even though we bring in more revenue each year, by formula, healthcare spending is going to eat up. It's going to outpace the increase in revenue that we have. The formula that we use to fund public education with the influx of students from Puerto Rico is going to be a big hit to the budget. So Senator Broxson really hit the nail on the head with regard to that being something that's going to be the overarching thing that we have to deal with. But we're mindful of that, and I think I love the way that the senator put it. That when we had our crisis, that the rest of the state stepped up to help us, and we'll do the same. So that's it. And then personally, each of us, either chair or the vice chair of certain committees, and so that takes up a good chunk of our time. Mine has to, transportation, probably takes the largest chunk of my time, but sort of my passion project this year revolves around a bill to continue to make the state more military friendly, which we think helps veterans when more active duty resources are here in the state, and then just to make this place the most attractive state for the military to exist in. So that's kind of where my focus will be this session.
Representative Williamson, same question to you.
Sure, and so Brooks and Rylan are at home watching the show too, so as soon as it's over, be good to mommy and go home and brush your teeth and get in bed. We lost, he's lost 2 teeth already, and inflation has gone up since I was younger. So basically, I'm in government accountability as vice chair this year, so and the subcommittees that I sit on fall underneath that government accountability silo. So I've really taken this year from that standpoint to try to learn everything I can about government accountability, which transportation and infrastructure falls under something that's very important to me. It's important to our district in Northwest Florida. So what I've tried to do is go in with a workman-like attitude to learn everything I can about that silo, so other people in my class and then other members come to me as a subject matter expert in government accountability and everything that falls under it. That way I can be more resourceful in the future for the next Speaker of the House, Jose Oliva. So try to do everything I can to be more valuable, and I think the senator was spot on. The rest of the state experienced something very troubling over the last few months. We experienced it about 12 or 14 years ago with Hurricane Ivan. We've been there and seen what it's like to go through such a devastating storm. They're still hurting, and they're going to continue to hurt, and everything that we do this year is going to really revolve around that. They were there when we needed them, and we're going to be there when they need them, and that's how we're going to earn the trust for the rest of the state, and this delegation will do a great job at that.
Representative Ponder, top of mind for you.
Well, thankfully, through Senator Broxson and Chair Ingram and Representative Williamson. They've kind of covered a lot of the issues we'll be facing. I know the budget will be tight, as been said. For me, outside of handling the needs of Irma and protecting those that have done without, to me it's just kind of a culture of honor. You know, that last year when we were in a situation where we wanted their support, as has been mentioned, they honored us, and I believe as has been said, we need to honor them and their needs, because they do have some real needs, real hurts, real wounds, that money can't solve all their problems, but hopefully it will help resolve some of the issues they have. And for me, outside of that, if there is some extra funding, I think it's a year for us as Florida, if given the opportunity to focus on wins, focus on things we can celebrate, taking what we have that's good and maybe making it great and outstanding, that we can be recognized perhaps throughout the whole country in some things. And I think we have that opportunity. This year I have the honor to serve as Vice Chair of the Higher Education Appropriations Subcommittee. And so for me, serving under Chair Ahern's been an honor. I'm learning a lot so far, but it gives me a chance to fight for some things in our region, our district. Things like UWF cybersecurity program, Pensacola State College finishing the bars building, Northwest Florida State College doing some remodeling projects, adding a veteran center. So it's for me to hopefully be able to fight for some things we have true need of here in our district, while at the same time honoring those in other parts of the state that have need. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to make wise, sound decisions, and I think the state will be pleased when we're done with session this year.
Well, I'll follow up since you mentioned cybersecurity. Actually, a question from one of our viewers. Do you support funding for Pensacola State College and UWF cybersecurity programs? And I'll throw that up to everyone.
Yeah, I'll just swing first on that one, 100%. Big believer in that. With Pensacola State, I'll start with that one. That's been a project 4 years in the making. The project still lacks $19 million. They've only been given roughly around $8 or $9 million to date. 4 years later, and it's still not been fully funded. And so I absolutely support them getting the balance of that money so they can break ground and actually finish the project. It's a great project for Pensacola State, and it's one that's desperately needed. The expansion they're going to be able to do to impact more students on campus will be fantastic. Dr. Meadows is doing a great job leading the vision behind that. And then the cybersecurity program, for those that don't know, it's one of the most revered and honored cybersecurity programs in the country. In fact, considered in the top 10. The request is $850,000. It's called Cybersecurity for all programs. They can actually expand the operation, expand the connectivity of what it's doing. Firm believer, that to me is one of the projects that it's already recognized as one of the top 10 in the country. Why not continue to put honor on that project, help them to even become better at what they're doing? Within the southeastern United States, they're pulling students from all over the southeastern United States, recognized not just statewide but nationally. So I'm a firm believer in those two projects getting their funding.
Yeah. Jeff, something we've tried to do from since we've all been in office, maybe Senator Broxson and I going back to 2010, this was the huge push, was to allow the industry need, allow the workforce need to drive how we educate. And so, I think everybody's probably aware of the tremendous need that has been created by the Department of Homeland Security and the Navy locating so many assets here with regard to cybersecurity. In fact, one of the deputy secretaries of, I couldn't tell you what his exact title was. It was long, and he was from Homeland Security, and he was maybe the number 2 or 3 guy. But he came here and he referred to this region as the Cyber Coast, and that's how DC sees this, the Emerald Coast as the Cyber Coast, because that's how many and how much assets they're putting here with regard to cybersecurity. So to be a part of keeping that workforce there to staff that is incumbent upon us to make sure it's well funded.
We're really following the lead of the military. I mean, they've made a tremendous investment in Herbert Field. They've sending their best and brightest to make sure that we are protected. And there's always, just like in the space program, you saw the impact on the public sector. We are always following the lead of the military. And frankly, this is an issue that's not going to go away. Right. All of our banks, all the security of all of our businesses is tied up into this invasion. Thousands of hits coming from overseas every day trying to invade the security of our country. Frankly, we saw some of it in the last election. We're going to see more of it in future elections. And it's incumbent on us that we create a system that protects our common citizen, their bank accounts, their credit card accounts, anything that has value the world is trying to get. And if we don't do that, we're going to see a tremendous flow of our assets out of this country to people we don't know who they are, and we certainly don't know what their intentions are for all of those assets.
And I'll try to say the same thing but say it differently, but to back up a little bit what Representative Ingram said, a lot of times in economic development, is it the chicken or is it the egg first? And with this, we're putting resources in for these programs that we're going to set Northwest Florida and the Panhandle up to be on the forefront of cybersecurity, where companies are going to be looking to move here and to come here. And so very thankful that Representative Ponder is, I believe, around an appropriations request for that. And I support that 100%, and we look forward to working on that this session.
I'm told by an expert in the field, for what it's worth, that right now, that just in our neck of the woods, if you will, that there are a tremendous amount of jobs that need to be filled in that particular field. That just, there are openings looking for qualified people.
I believe UWF has done, under the leadership of Dr. El Sheik's, done an amazing job. I think their hire rate is right at 100%, if not close to it. So every student coming through the program almost has a job in waiting because of their reputation and also the demand.
And these are jobs, I mean, not to belabor the point, but they're jobs where you can go from being poor to setting yourself up to being upper middle class and save well and invest well and you know, change the direction of your family tree, and then that's wonderful for this region.
Absolutely. Another viewer question here geared towards Senator Broxson. Will you support Senate Bill 370, which would guarantee $100 million per year to the Florida Forever Trust Fund and fulfill the intent of voters who overwhelmingly approved the Water and Land Conservation Amendment in 2014?
Well, the answer is partially yes. We haven't had the debate yet. We have a lot of needs around the state. And, you know, many people feel like that when we passed that amendment, that everyone that stood in line had a specific understanding of how that money would be spent. I didn't see that. I think that we've done a good job. Last year we dealt with Lake Okeechobee and some of the problems there. We'll deal with the issues that are necessary to move the state forward. And if that's the best project, I'll support it.
Yes.
And if the Broxson family and the Williamson family has spent a lot of time on the water and taking care of or using the resources that we have in the Panhandle. Our families go way back. I want my son to be able to have the wonderful waterways and everything that we have in our state, and I want him to do the things and fish like I did. My great-grandfather was a commercial fisherman on the Blackwater River and pulling a gill net before they were banned. We want all those things to happen for the future, but when we talk about taking more and more money or more and more land off the tax rolls, there's got to be a point where we have to look at the inventory we have now, and we have to make sure that we're taking care of what we have now. I was always raised, it's not about what you have, it's what you take care of. And we have a lot of land that we got to make sure that we're able to spend the money on the burns and the different things that have to be done to take care of these projects. So I certainly back the senator up that we want to be able to take the money that's being generated and put it towards some of the Florida Forever projects, but we also have to take care of what we have now, and we have to find that good mix. And I think going through the legislative process, we're going to find that good mix as we debate it and spend a whole session looking at it.
Very good. Another viewer question here. Do you support or oppose drilling off the Florida coast? And I'll open that up to everyone.
I'll start with that. I do not. I believe that one of the things in Northwest Florida we have that is a tremendous asset for us is our military. And the mission of the military is really dependent up here on the Gulf Range out in the Gulf of Mexico. And so from that regard, there was a current moratorium in place through 2022. I'm on the House side working on a resolution to extend that moratorium so that the mission of the military is not affected. If they come in, it would affect, obviously the BP oil spill still is a sting for all of us, and it's an unfortunate situation. Heaven forbid that it were to happen again. But I know that currently I think the Department of Interior has already done a new lease within the Gulf, and I forget how many millions of acres they're able to start doing oil and natural gas drilling. But in terms of preserving off the coast of Florida, my first priority is to preserve the mission of the military. And so from that regard, I would not be in favor of that.
Anyone else like to add to that?
Well, frankly, until the military says go, there will not be any drilling in the Gulf along the Panhandle. We know that because the Gulf Range has become so important. Jeff, for a long time, we really didn't know what the military was thinking. We had to wait for our federal partners in Washington to give us a message. We have a mechanism now because of Representative Ingram and Senator Gates and the governor. We have the Florida Defense Support Task Force, and we are in direct communication with every base in the state of Florida. And now they're talking to us directly.
Okay.
They're giving us what they want. And they've told us clearly that they want that range area in the Gulf to be protected for their mission. They've also told us that they don't want to pass in Navarre. And until they change their mind on those two issues, I don't think you'll see any legislator in the state of Florida, and they'll listen to us in Tallahassee, you'll see any movement on doing anything with those two projects until we get a go-ahead from the military partners.
Okay. Anyone else like to add to that? Or okay. Speaking, kind of staying on the same subject, do you support the banning of fracking in the state of Florida? A couple of viewers asking that same question, and I'll again open that to everyone.
Well, I'll be glad that, we've only fracked twice in Florida in the last 70 years. It's really not an issue. If you talk to geologists, the soil and the sediment structure in Florida does not give itself to fracking. I'm more concerned about what we're doing with deep well injection. This next year, we're going to pump 130 billion gallons of what was yesterday fresh water down below the boulder zone. And we're doing that all over the state to get rid of our sewer and effluent. That's where the real issues are. It's not fracking. Fracking is not an issue in Florida because we don't frack. So why have a ban if you're not doing it? So we need to deal with the real issues that deal with Florida and not the issues that are concerning other parts of the states.
Okay. Anyone like to add to that? Or okay. Viewer question here, do you support home rule? That's something that's come up quite a bit here.
A loaded
lately.
question.
I'll jump in there first. Being a former mayor and city council member, I do. I've also recognized that there's some situations that maybe there's a better statewide solution than perhaps a local solution. However, if it starts, I've kind of said it this way on the floor of the House, that I believe every city in our state and every county from that regard has a purpose, has a mission, has a vision that's meant to fulfill and be fulfilled within that city or county or that local jurisdiction. And so there's a lot of things that are best handled at home under a home rule legislation or policy type thing. There's some things that we don't necessarily need 67 different rules to follow or 412 different rules to follow at the city level, and so some things are better at the state level. However, I do support home rule because I do believe that some of the unique identities some of our cities have within our state need to be preserved and protected with local decision makers that make those policy decisions.
And I always use the example of our Second Amendment rights. I mean, you look at the 1987 gun preemption for the state of Florida, you would hate to drive from Pensacola to Miami, and every single municipality or every single county or jurisdiction that you went through have a different set of gun laws or a different set of rulings on our Second Amendment. So there are times when I think it makes perfect sense to preempt and to have a blanket across the state. And then there are other times where you would want to have something set up. Maybe the Panhandle is a little bit different than Central Florida and Orlando or South Florida and Miami, and we just have to use those on a base-by-base decision.
Okay, very good. Here's another question from a viewer. Interesting subject, double taxation on cigarettes. Viewer says, no matter how many departments I contact, I can't get an answer about double taxation on cigarettes. She says we pay $1 a pack, added state tax, and another $1 a pack federal tax, and then we pay local and state sales taxes on the total, which includes a couple of bucks in added taxes. And she says, I was under the impression that somewhere in the Constitution it was considered unconstitutional for double taxation. Could you explain this to me?
Yeah. I don't smoke, so but I did. I guess we obviously every hand, federal, state, and local that touches that box has the ability to tax it. Right. I think our political philosophies would want to reduce those taxes on any product. I guess tobacco is kind of a different animal, but I mean, as far as what's legal and they're able to do, I think that each one of those entities is probably able to tax. Legally as the law sits right now.
And I don't know the ins and outs of the taxation on tobacco. I don't smoke either, but you look at our gas tax, we have federal gas tax, we have state, and we have local gas taxes that can be raised. So I would think that those would all be under the purview of the Constitution as well.
I think one of the things that fired me up as a college student the first time when I looked at my phone bill and realized that my taxes were taxed. That angered me. And that still angers me. And so I feel the viewer's pain when it comes to just being fleeced a little bit too much. So anyway, I guess we feel her pain or his pain, but don't know. I don't know that it's illegal as the law sits right now.
And probably given the fact it's tobacco, she's probably not going to find a lot of sympathy, rightly or wrongly. Can you provide any assistance to independent pharmacists in Florida? Another viewer question.
I'll say this, we've all met with local pharmacists. We had our delegation meeting, Senator Broxton, rather, sorry about the demotion there temporarily. Preston McDonald, our local contact with the local pharmacists. My grandfather was an independent pharmacist, and so I feel like, my ability to go to school and so that profession sort of paid for me to get to adulthood. So I think all of these guys have a sympathy. They've taken it on the chin over and over. I think it started with the state making an initial move right before Senator Broxton and I were elected to the House, where the state moved to some of the big companies, took the ability for state employees to go to an independent pharmacy, just took basically that right away, and they had to go to the big boys, to the Caremark, CVS type companies. And so, again, they've taken it on the chin. Senator Broxton indicated maybe the Senate might have some strategies to try to give some relief to them with regard to the pharmacy benefit managers that make life almost unbearable for them. So I think, I don't know what form that would take, but if we could find some way to give them some relief, I think we would all be in favor of it.
We're really in a catch-22. The state mandate is that we need to save money, every dollar we can, on health care. And it's a growing part of our budget every year. This year, Medicaid would cost the state of Florida about 35% of our total budget. We've been trying to do that by leveraging our buying power through programs that, frankly, has just killed the local pharmacist. And we've got to find a way to carve them out so they can be protected. If they can match the price that they're getting from a vendor that we've negotiated a contract with, they should be allowed to sell that product. And we're working on that. We worked on it last year, and I think you'll see a lot of movement this year to make sure that we don't look back in 10 years and say, I remember when we used to have a local pharmacy on the corner, because they are dying out because of this rush to save money in the state.
Okay. Here's another viewer question regarding Barranca Cemetery. The person says, I'm disabled and the security restrictions at the Navy base now prevent me from visiting my parents. Can you persuade the Navy to make Barrancas accessible again?
Yeah, I'll be happy to try to address that. So there is a real problem there, and it's not from any one local. I think that the base is doing everything they can to try to provide access, but just the powers that be within the Navy have made security such. I mean, security is a priority, but sure. It's become restricted to the point that people can't visit their loved ones that are buried at the cemetery. So there's a plan. We refer to it sort of as a plan to seclude the secure areas of the base from the non-secure areas of the base, called the Enclave Plan. The I can't talk tonight. The Defense Support Task Force that Representative Broxton chairs, that I used to chair, has looked at ways to fund that. Essentially, the big cost comes with fencing to make the secure areas secure and allow people to visit the museum, the flight academy, the lighthouse, and the cemetery. And so that's I won't want to say it's in the works, because finding the money to do so, and it's probably in the 20 million plus range to do it. The federal government has said that will not come from MILCON money. They just don't have it. They won't put money from the military construction budget toward that. But we're trying to come up with a creative way to make that happen. So I guess to the viewers, to answer that question is, a lot of people are working hard on trying to solve that. And it's coming down to where are we going to find the money. I think there's a plan identified, a way to fix it. It's going to come down to us finding a way to fund it. And so we're all working hard on trying to identify money to make that happen.
Okay. Anyone else like to piggyback on that, or do you think that pretty much summed it up? Everybody summed it up. Okay, good. Will the state appropriate money for the Beulah and Pine Forest interchanges on Interstate 10, obviously as Navy Federal continues to expand?
Yeah, I'll take that one too. So we've appropriated money over the past several sessions toward the Beulah interchange. It was vetoed last year. I think we'll be able to move forward. There's some indications from county personnel after meetings with the federal government and then meetings with Navy Federal that there may be a way to relieve traffic exiting Navy Federal through the rest area perhaps. But I guess to, again, answer the viewer's question, it'll happen. If it's solely the federal government, it'll take a lot longer for it to happen. If the money that we've appropriated, avoids the veto pen, that'll help speed up the process. So it's a matter of time, I think, rather than if.
Okay. Very good. Arts funding, a viewer question. Thank you for your past support of the arts. Will you continue to do so? We'll open that up to everyone.
I mean, I'm a big believer in the arts. I mean, some of the projects that we see on the Higher Education Appropriations Subcommittee have to do with some higher institutions and some art projects along the way. One of the things I do like about a derivative of the arts is how its effect has been on military with PTSD, some of the art therapies and things of that nature, and so I'm very embracive of anything that would come in. And my daughter's a dancer, and I love that. She's creative. I don't have that gene. My wife can sing. My kids, I just don't have that. But
I know the feeling.
But the people the artistic, there's a creativity in that comes alive in people that maybe they don't get through your normal traditional setting, sometimes in education. And so I'm a firm believer in the arts in general, because where one might thrive in arithmetic and maybe history, someone else is going to come alive and thrive in dance and art, and from that regard. So I'm a big believer in the arts, and that when and where we can use it, whether it's just helping someone become more creative, stepping into their gift or call, or even helping a military with PTSD, I'm very embracive of that.
Something I know that we've tried to do in the House and Senator Broxton's tried to do in the Senate is the Department of State has ranked lists to fund a lot of the arts and museum, historical type projects. And so something we fought hard to do is to prevent earmarks on the pots of money, to prevent the vetted projects that should be funded from not receiving funding, because they're, basically members of the legislature have kind of stolen that money for pet projects. So something we'll continue to try to do is to protect the vetted Department of State lists, so that the projects and the museums and otherwise are funded, that are vetted, have been seen, and the proper attention's been given to them, rather than having legislators come by and earmark that money for pet projects at home. So we'll keep fighting to get those lists funded.
Okay, very good. Viewer question here regarding driver's license. When I renew my license, why must I supply so much paperwork, including divorce decrees from 30 years ago? Somebody in Okaloosa County. So I don't know if you
Short answer is I think comes down to the Federal Real ID Act of a few years ago, and the state wrestled with whether or not to adopt it. If we had not adopted it, people from Florida wouldn't have been able to use their driver's licenses to get on airplanes. I think would have been one of the really negative side effects. So if you can get through that pain of having to prove who you are and bring a utility bill and all those things you have to do, it makes life a lot easier when you try to travel around the country, because your ID will be recognized by every other state.
Right. I know there's some new stuff going on. I just had mine renewed, and I know there's a special little thing on it now, which, by the way, I'm going to shout out to the folks. They did a wonderful job. So I had a great experience, a great job in downtown Pensacola. By the way, another question from a viewer: what is the status of the Triumph oil spill money? And I know that's a long, drawn out, we could probably talk all night just on that, but if you want to give us a 10,000-foot overview of it, Senator Broxton.
Well, the good news is the money's been transferred to a fund that's located here in the Panhandle. We have 5 great members that are now taking applications to build that third leg of our economy. And the better news is that the $1.2 billion that's going to come our way over the next 15 years will go directly into that fund. We'll bypass the general fund in Tallahassee, which was of great concern to each one of us here tonight. We were concerned that the deposit that we received last year would have never been made if we have had a disaster within the state. We think we've bypassed that process. We think we're going to see a very vibrant Triumph process take place, and it's going to change the economy of the Panhandle. It's the oil spill was horrible, but in many ways it was a real blessing to this area, because we're going to see the impact of what money can do to stimulate growth in our economy.
I just want to add on top of that. I mean, I also want to thank Senator Broxton as well as Senator Gaynor, who couldn't be here, because the House had a select committee to try to put together a plan for that. But as those two gentlemen that came in at the very end and said the balance of $1.2 billion, we need to make sure it doesn't get in the wrong place per se, and they were able to put that legislation in to redirect that money back into our coffers for Northwest Florida. And as you said, it's a generational changer. What we get to do with those funds, I can sense an air of excitement of people that through the board that's going to receive the projects and put them in, but people are getting excited about what can be done from an infrastructure standpoint, workforce development standpoint, educational component. there's a lot of key things that those funds can be spent on. And so I think it's going to be a tremendous opportunity. We'll see, not for the next few years, but the next 20 years of great things coming our way.
Yeah, so piggyback on that, so let's throw this question up here. You said that you just sense an air of an excitement about it. Do you gentlemen sense an air of excitement about the entire Northwest Florida area, just say in recent years? It just sort of seems to me, anecdotally speaking, as I talk to people, the tide has changed, that we're entering a different world. Is that me being overly optimistic, or are you sensing the same thing?
Yeah, I remember as a kid, or a high schooler, first getting my driver's license, coming to downtown Pensacola was not something you did. I mean,
Right.
just because it was maybe not safe. And that is not the case anymore. It's a place that everyone wants to be. You said there's a palpable excitement about the region. That's one example of excitement in the region, but it's probably across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I sense it too in Santa Rosa County and Okaloosa. It just seems to me like, I mean, it's certainly downtown Pensacola, a lot of talk, but it seems to be going across. So
Jerry and I drove through Milton the other day, and it was just, there's beauty, there are people there, the riverfront being developed. I mean, it's exciting. You're
I
right.
think we have hope, Jeff. In my opinion, sometimes when you've gone through some tough times we did with the oil spill and the real estate economy and things of that nature, Northwest Florida, it was tough at that point in time. But I feel like we've come out of that, and I feel like we have hope and vision and purpose. And where there's hope, there's people can really get on board with what's coming in the days ahead. And so and I also believe this delegation, Northwest Florida delegation, in terms of the state level, is bode exceptionally well because people see us getting along with each other. We work exceptionally well with each other. We fight for each other and for our region. And I believe some of the transparency and the trickle down is the honor we have to get to serve alongside each other and hopefully maybe play a little role in letting some of this hope come back to Northwest Florida.
Representative Williams.
I think you learn a lot about communities whenever you go through a tough time, and we've seen it with hurricanes where people come together. And you look at the oil spill, and you had in the past maybe different communities that would have bickers amongst each other, even within the community, but
Absolutely.
then maybe Santa Rosa County and Escambia and some of these things. But then when you all go through something that affects all of you, that's when you can start to rise above it. You can forget about the things in the past. Maybe you don't totally forget about them, but you say, you know what, I know we had differences 20 and 30 and 40 years ago, but for us to succeed in the future of Northwest Florida, we have to all work together. So it's taking that tough time and saying, how do we work together? How do we have each other's back? How do we lock arms and move forward? I think we've done that as a delegation. I think that Triumph Gulf Coast, just the legislation and how everything went with that, it was great for all of us because many times even members within a delegation can squabble amongst each other. We all work together. We maybe not agreed 100% all the time, but we all worked together. It brought us together, and I agree with you. There's some excitement about Northwest Florida and the future of our region.
Okay.
One of the things, I was watching Army-Navy game Saturday, and I looked under the tag. There it was, University of West Florida had just beat a team out of Pennsylvania. Now, you're talking about a mind warp.
Yes.
The second year of a program is not, this is not small-time football. This is major football. It's not Florida State or Florida or Miami or Auburn or Alabama. But these guys are playing phenomenal football, and we're gonna read about this for a long time. This is unprecedented that we would have this kind of team that come together the way they have, and we're so proud of them. And of course, we take credit because we help fund the program over there, so we're looking for our dividend from that.
Probably ought to throw Dr. Judy Pence a pretty good
Absolutely.
amount of credit on that. And just to piggyback on that for fun while we're on it here, but what was to add to the Army-Navy game, what also really made it cool is we kind of claimed the Blue Angels as our own, and the fact that the Navy had the Blue Angels uniform on. I thought that really had a Pensacola connection to me. Anyway, so let me shift gears here to a few more serious issues. A question from a viewer: why not give non-violent, and underline non-violent criminals, their rights back automatically after they have paid their dues, time, fines, etc.? And then the person says, same subject, the poor crowd our jails waiting for a court date because they are poor and can't make bail. Why? So sort of two separate questions. Why not give non-violent felons their rights back?
Yeah. The second part of that question, there's a member of the Senate, Senator Brandis, that sort of has adopted that as an issue of high priority. I carried a bill that addressed it last session, and it essentially, would take crimes that are not related to, I think a thing that puts a lot of people in jail are, driving offenses not related to anything to do with their, being in trouble. Right. And so we wanted to decouple those, minor offenses with putting people back in jail. So anyway, I think that will probably get addressed. I think that's the tide's turned on that. The first part's probably, I'm not on a lot of criminal justice committees, so I probably couldn't speak to that as well as maybe other members of the delegation could.
About 3 weeks ago, I went down to Lake Butler, which there's 7 prisons within that area, and went to Rayford, which is where the death row, walked death row, was able to speak to some of the death row inmates. And it is an awesome thing, people in prison. We have over 100,000 prisoners in the state of Florida. The problem we're having now is we cannot find enough people to guard these folks. We have, in some cases, 30% vacancy in some prisons. That's dangerous. We're already seeing a spike in crime on prisoner and prisoner on guard. We've got to find a way, if we're going to send people to prison and we can't take care of them, we have a crisis. So I believe you're going to see in the next few years that we revisit some non-violent crimes, people that are in prison on mandatory minimum sentences, that the legislature needs to look at that and get people that made a mistake, one mistake in their life, and they want to be back with their family and working and being a productive part of society. We need to identify those people and get them back in the system as quickly as we can.
Jeff,
yes.
We're a land of laws, so we must have some type consequences whenever you break those laws. Without order, there's chaos. So we must have some type, some system set into place where when people do break the law, that there are things that they don't get. But we also need to have a way for petty crimes, or for somebody who wrote a bad check in 1973 that was $200 over a vehicle that they were trying to get fixed to go to work, and then they lose their Second Amendment right for 40 plus years. I mean, there's got to be ways that we take this before it's a constitutional amendment and let the legislator do it, where we can then have more say-so on exactly how it's implemented. And I think we're going to see that this year. Representative Byrd, I believe, out of Jacksonville has a bill, and there's probably going to be multiple bills. And it's just something that it's going to have to work through the process, through the committee process, through the floor process, going back and forth between the House and the Senate. And I think that we're going to see steps in that over the next year.
Okay. Representative Williamson hit this, but I believe there is something with the Constitutional Revision Committee. One of the amendments they're looking at has to do with just that.
Okay, very good. We get this question about every time we do the program. Modification of existing alimony laws. Will you be willing to support an end to permanent alimony for existing and future cases?
Yeah, I think all of us have voted on that bill, on the floor of either the House or Senate. And it's been vetoed by the governor. Even at times he's promised to sign it. So I don't know if the bill will be filed again this year. I don't think I've seen it filed, but golly, I mean, I guess if you can put pressure on the governor's office to deal with that, it would help.
Very good. What are your thoughts on a change to open primaries? Are there any downsides to this? One of our viewers wants to know.
Yeah, the downside is that a lot of people, we probably ought to put a lot of money towards civics education, because our primary processes are political party primaries. If you don't like political parties, that's a separate issue, but they're preference primaries that where the parties select their nominees. So that's what the primaries are. If you don't like that, then different ways to go about it. But I mean, that's I don't. Let me say it this way: as a Republican, I don't want the Democrats picking my nominee. Plain and simple.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, very good. Here's another viewer question. I'm going to read it. It's somewhat long, but I will read it. These House Bill 25 and Senate Bill 1036, these bills seek to decertify teachers' unions, specifically while leaving firefighters, police, and transportation unions alone. Florida is already a right-to-work state. No one is required to join the union. Why are some in the Florida legislature writing legislation that takes away from the collective voice of teachers, a profession that is mostly women, but not writing legislation that would hurt male-dominated unions? Do the legislators of Northwest Florida plan on supporting these bills?
This coming session, there'll be 2,000 bills filed by 160 members. Most of those bills never see a committee. never see the floor, and they're simply an idea. I don't really believe that's going to happen. I think that we're going to respect the unions that are in place, the ones that the people select their members and they choose to have collective bargaining. I don't believe we're going to single out the teachers any more than we would the machinists or any other union. So I don't speak to bills that are filed until they become serious and they work their way through committee, and then if they get to the floor, that's when the real challenge to do what the right thing is. And these folks, I think you'll find that we are against bad legislation, and we vote against things that we don't believe in. And our values in the Panhandle are much different than many other parts of the state, and we reflect that in our vote.
Okay. Let's move to education here. Viewer question, early childhood education is extremely important. Will you increase funding?
I'd have to look at, I mean, I'm on the education committee, and I'm on the K-12 innovation subcommittee. I've not seen any funding requests per se that would be dedicated to early childhood development. I do believe that participants in that program have skill sets that could blossom, that can coach them or you know, provide some bumpers, if you will, to point them in the right direction. So I do put great value on it. If there's something that comes before us that I've not seen it yet, so I preface it by that, I would love to see how we can support them in a manner that would actually help them grow, as well as some of their skill sets maybe start to come alive as they begin that learning process. So I would be embracive of that if I saw the right program and I felt it had the right results on the back end of it as well.
Yeah, and Jeff, I mean, I would think to a man we would want. I mean, I think we know the value of what, you know, investing in a child at, you know, from the prenatal stage, you know, to kindergarten does long term. It's a matter of at some point where do you find the money to create that increase. So it has to be taken from somewhere. You know, and when we, like we talked about at the top of the broadcast, I think next year we could be in a deficit situation again. This year, although there's been an increase in revenue, that money's either spoken for or taken by, you know, the mandatory federal increases in healthcare spending and education. And so it becomes sometimes an issue of where would we take that money from to increase. So I think if we could find a way to do it, we would want to, if that answers the viewer's question.
Another viewer question regarding schools. What is your position on charter schools? You want to address that?
Sure. I believe that I'm for charter schools. I'm also for public schools. One of the benefits we have in Northwest Florida, at least I can speak from Santa Rosa County and Okaloosa County, I'm sure Escambia is up there as well, is we have some of the best public schools, districts, and schools in the whole state of Florida. At the same time, there's some charter schools I believe serve a purpose as well. And last year in session, we had some opportunities to help some charter operations, perhaps in some failing school districts or didn't have some of the successful school districts we have in Northwest Florida, to give them an opportunity for kids and parents to make the right decision on what kind of is the best educational opportunity for them and their family. And so I believe charter schools, which are public schools, by the way, can fulfill that mission for those families that are looking for something different.
Okay. Here's a viewer question. He says, or asks the question, why are whistleblowers denied their federal and state of Florida protections for reporting child and student abuse and discrimination against persons with disabilities and ESE students? He also says, why is Escambia County allowed to falsely accuse teachers of child abuse to terminate them, but then they refuse to file the false cases with the Florida Department of Children and Family Services in 97 to 100% of the cases? And where are the 97 to 99.999% of the cases that are bogus? Are you familiar with that?
Well, there's a lot of things said in there that I don't know if that's true or not. I believe we have a pretty good system that ferrets out those bad actors, and I don't get it in my emails that we have these overwhelming problems. So what he's talking about there, or she, frankly, we'd have to look into that and see how much of that is reality.
So perhaps if he has a specific case, maybe contact you personally or email, something along those lines. Why can't you pass a bill, I should pass a heritage bill to protect our history? Example, a group of people wanting to tear down statues of Andrew Jackson and Robert E. Lee. That comes from a viewer. Why can't you pass a bill, I guess, to prevent that? That's obviously been somewhat of a political hot potato here in the past year or so, not just in Florida, but around the nation.
Senator Baxley from Ocala has actually proposed a bill that protects primarily Confederate statutes around the state. I think the question is, do we do away with our history, both bad history and good history? And the Civil War, 750,000 Americans died. Do we just say that didn't happen and move forward? I think there's going to be a continual debate in the future about how we treat history. And is it correct or incorrect? That's not history. History is history. And we will deal with that, I think, in future legislative sessions, just like all the other states, primarily in the South, will have to deal with over the next 10 years.
Okay. Well, here's one you knew we had to discuss because it's been all over the news, not just at the state level, but also at the national level. And so I'm asking you to address it. What are you going to, and this is a viewer question, what are you going to do about sexual harassment? They specifically say in the Florida legislature. So I'll open that wide open.
I'll say for the Florida House, and Chair Ingram could probably, because he's been in the process longer, is under our current leadership, Speaker Corcoran, he's wanting to pass the strongest ethics reform in our history in the State House, and that includes sexual harassment, not just how we treat lobbyists and things of that nature, but how we treat each other, our aides, those on staff, those that work for the state, with a zero tolerance policy behind that. And so I believe the Florida House, and I'm sure the Senate as well, stepping up to the plate under Senate President Negron, that we want to be the standard when it comes to that. I mean, obviously you can't police everyone, but in terms of passing one of the strongest ethics reforms in our state's history, I believe our current leadership in the Florida House stands firmly behind a zero tolerance policy on sexual harassment.
Anybody like to add to that, or everyone pretty much in agreement on that? Okay, very good. Why does the state of Florida, again here going to teacher pay for a second, this person says, why does the state of Florida and Escambia County in particular, and I know you don't rule Escambia County, have so little respect for teacher pay? And you know, and that's always been an issue for a long time. That I think most of us would agree teachers are probably are underpaid. So your thoughts on that? Is there anything we can do about it on the state level?
Representative Ponder may have more detailed information, but a lot of that is a district decision. We allot the money to the districts, and they can choose to distribute that how they see fit. So a lot of that, obviously, I think we would all love to see teachers more well paid across the board. But when it comes down to why is this district making more than another district, it's choices that are made at the district level.
Okay. And add to that.
It's a tough decision because they're educating our future generations. It's important, and you want it to be a coveted position out of school. And they go to college, university to get a teacher certificate, and they come in, and we want to honor them the right way. But it does come down, unfortunately, to a budgetary situation, and most districts make that decision within the district of how they'll start paying out starting salaries.
Okay. Another viewer question here. There is a measure proposed to eliminate the ban for public funding for religious groups. Do you agree with this, even though religious groups and churches already pay no taxes? What would be the benefit? Are you familiar with that? No. Okay. So that might be something that's floating around somewhere out there, but perhaps it's not at the forefront.
Yeah, probably along the lines of what Senator Broxton said, something that might have been filed that we haven't seen yet.
Okay, very good. We are working towards the end of the program here, so just a couple of things to touch on. I will get you sort of to give us an idea as you go into 2018, what do you hope that you guys are able to do? And I'll start with you, Senator Broxton. What do you want to come back here in March or April and say we've been able to accomplish? What's most important to you?
Well, I think Florida is a very important state to the rest of the states. What we do here is important. The fact that we continually balance our budget, we stay within our means, has been a message that we've sent to our brothers and sisters across the country. I think you'll see us continue to do that. That is going to be our legacy, is that if we're asking people to control their own budgets, does Florida have the ability to control ours? And I believe the answer is going to be yes.
Okay, Representative Ingram,
Yeah.
This will be your last hurrah, so to speak.
Swan song, absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's been the thrill of my life to have been sent to Tallahassee to represent District 1. It was District 2 when I was elected, now it's District 1. But I do always look forward to turning west and you know, getting home as soon as possible because I love this area. But man, you know, to come out of the session with us being a little bit freer, with business people having a little bit less or a lot less red tape to go through, you know, this is always a goal, which makes it easier to hire and grow the economy and create jobs. So that's something we never want to take our eyes off of as we head into a legislative session. That's always the goal we want to come out with at the end.
Representative Williamson?
Sure. From a personal standpoint, I mean, last year I felt we had a good session, passing bills. 6 of 8 were signed into law. Hoping that this year we'll be able to navigate that process. The people of my district and the people in Northwest Florida, they sent me to Tallahassee to protect their money and their freedom. So that's what I plan to do during this session. Hopefully we'll be able to come back and have a review and that we all did well on our appropriation request and brought some money home. We send plenty of money to Tallahassee, and all these guys sitting here at this table are going to work as hard as we can to bring some of that money home.
Very good. And Representative Ponder?
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, just along the lines I said, you know, Florida's got an identity. We're the 16th largest economy in the world. That's a big deal, and so we got to maintain our base. We got to maintain our what we sit upon, and so I think that's paramount. But also back home, our military is extremely important for me. I've got 3 military bills this year that I'm running, so putting great honor on that. Continue to be mindful of what we're doing throughout the region, roads, things that we have great need of as well. Hopefully bringing, as Representative Williams said, a couple of victories home from an appropriation standpoint would be great as well. But maintaining the identity and purpose and integrity of who we are in Northwest Florida, and then also, as I said, really putting honor on the military and helping them out as well.
Very good. The session begins this year a little on the early side, I believe, January the 9th. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yeah. And if our constituents, listeners, viewers have concerns or questions that were not answered or addressed this evening, how is the best way for them to contact all of you?
The state email for me is it's mel.ponder@myfloridahouse.gov. It's probably for us, or my aide's name is Samantha Sullivan. You can reach me through her as well.
Okay.
If you go to flhouse.gov, I believe that's right, you can pretty much get all of our contact information. It has our offices, the locations listed, the phone numbers and emails, and be glad to help anybody best we can.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, sounds good, and I hope the Tooth Fairy has a nice evening at your house.
It could be an expensive night.
It could be an expensive night. I was amazed at how much inflation had crept in when my daughter lost her teeth versus when I did. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. We appreciate your time, and I wish each and every one of you a very happy and most of all, safe holiday season. And we will look forward to seeing you back here in the spring after the session. Thank you so very much. And thank all of you, our wonderful listeners and constituents and viewers, for participating this evening. We greatly appreciate your questions. Our guests this evening have been members of the local Northwest Florida Legislative Delegation, Senator Doug Broxson, Representatives Clay Ingram, J.R. Williamson, and Mel Ponder. Representative Frank White and Senator George Gaynor were unable to join us. Tonight's broadcast has come to you from the Phyllis and Mike Johnson studio over the television airwaves of WSRE TV, PBS for the Gulf Coast, and also News Radio 1620 and 92.3 FM. I'm Jeff Weeks, wishing you a safe and happy holiday season. Enjoy your evening. Take wonderful care of yourself. And hey, enjoy yourself out there in the sunshine state of Florida. It's a pretty good place to be. Have a wonderful evening. Good night, everybody.